Welcome to Merritt Street Media. Tonight on Dr. Phil Primetime. Is it even possible to get a fair trial anymore? Alex Murdaugh's attorney says his client did not get a fair trial. Did you anticipate that there would be a guilty verdict?
We did not think the state had proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
This juror said, I was influenced.
I've never heard or seen anything like this.
This is something that is so outside the norm. It's shocking. It's still shocking.
Well, a new study shows a whopping 76% of Americans admit they are fans of true crime. You guys among them? You fans of true crime? I thought so. And the double murder trial of prominent South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh certainly fed into our country's obsession with the genre. Court TV says their viewership went up, get this, 600% during the verdict, and people across the country spent almost 5 million hours watching coverage of the trial. Now, the story had it all: dark secrets, money, power, and privilege. America was captivated.
I need the police to answer to me. My wife and child got badly.
What is your name?
My name is Alex Murdaugh.
That was June 7th, 2021.
Murdaugh says he returned home to find his wife and son shot to death out near the dog kennels on their vast property.
The expert offers a disturbing picture of the murder scene. He determined 2 gunshot blasts hit Paul Murdaugh. The first was to the chest, but the fatal shot to his shoulder and head was so violent that his brain was completely detached from his head.
The gruesome scene suggested 2 shooters, leaving many wondering if the family's long legal history had played a role.
That alleged motive dates back to a February 2019 boat crash, during which Paul Murdaugh was allegedly driving drunk. 19-year-old Mallory Beach was killed in that crash. Because Alex Murdaugh owned the boat, her family filed a civil suit against him. His financial records likely would have been revealed at a scheduled hearing in June 2021. But Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were killed a few days before.
Day of reckoning was upon him, and he was out of cards to play.
Prosecutors say he had a motive for allegedly killing them, to hide his alleged financial crimes.
Guilty, verdict, verdict, guilty, verdict, guilty, verdict, guilty.
The jury heard 6 weeks of testimony, but took less than 3 hours to convict him.
It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you do wrong, if you break the law, if you murder, then justice will be done in South Carolina.
How many of you watched the trial? At least some. How many of you thought he was guilty? How many of you thought he was innocent? One lady in the back. That's Alex's mom. No. All right. The trial also sparked a social media frenzy. Just one TikTok video about Murdaugh had more than 31 million views. 6 major documentaries were released. The one that streamed on Netflix was a top performer in 34 different countries. With cases playing out on social media, TV, and the internet, is it even possible to get a fair trial anymore? Alex Murdaugh's attorney is here. He says his client did not get a fair trial for many reasons. Now, one being that a court clerk who wanted her 15 minutes of fame, true crime fame, really messed things up.
Alec Murdaugh's hope for a new trial gone. Justice Jean Toll denied Murdaugh's motion for retrial.
The defense's request came from allegations of jury tampering by Carlton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill.
The Clerk of Court allowed public attention of the moment to overcome her duties.
In just 15 minutes, Justice Jean Toll decided the future of Alec Murdaugh, and the convicted murderer is staying behind bars. Justice Toll heard from jurors and the clerk herself, who continues to deny any wrongdoing.
Did you have any conversation with any juror in which you tried to influence their decision?
I did not have a conversation with any juror about anything related to this case.
Was your verdict influenced in any way by the communications of the Clerk of Court in this case?
Yes, ma'am. Murdaugh's lawyers say even though the retrial was denied, they came out with a win today. That's because Justice Jean Toll said she also found Clerk of Court Becky Hill not credible.
I find that the Clerk of Court is not completely credible as a witness. Ms. Hill was attracted by the siren call of celebrity.
The defense says they still feel confident they'll be granted a new trial eventually, and they say they'll take their request to federal court if necessary.
Well, I'm joined by Alec Murdaugh's defense attorney, Jim Griffin, as well as high-profile criminal trial attorney and media legal analyst, Sarah Azari. Now, they co-host The Presumption, a podcast that focuses on our broken justice system and the impact the media has on high-profile cases like Murdaugh. Jim, what was your reaction to the ruling? Did you anticipate that there would be a guilty verdict?
No, we did not anticipate that there would be a guilty verdict. I mean, if you analyze the evidence, we did not think that the state had proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They spent 2 weeks of a 6-week murder trial doing a character assassination over Alec Murdaugh's admitted financial crimes. But when you look at the evidence that was actually presented, you know, I think you really objectively have to come away with there is reasonable doubt. We were surprised that the verdict came back so quickly, and, you know, we started asking questions, and the more questions we asked, the more questions that have arisen.
Do you think the judge made the wrong decision when you asked for a retrial?
And we were not surprised with the judge's ruling. The state of South Carolina spent 6 weeks under the watchful eye of the world trying this case. And our state judiciary put its best foot forward. And after the trial judge received a lot of accolades. The prosecutor received a lot of accolades. And then we later learned that the clerk of court tainted with the process. And to grant a new trial would be expensive and embarrassing. So we felt like that we had an uphill battle to convince the trial judge that we were entitled to a new trial.
And Jim, what is it that the clerk Becky Hill did that you think crossed the line?
Through this evidentiary hearing, we learned that at least 5 jurors have testified under oath or by affidavit that she made comments to them, private comments, about the merits of the case. 5 of the jurors say that right before Alec testified, she commented on how to judge his credibility, Dr. Phil. I mean, she says, don't just listen to what he says, watch him closely, watch his actions, watch his movements. And then the alternate, Dr. Phil, testified before she was excused, she heard Becky Hill say, this verdict shouldn't take you long. Now, you've had experience with trials, and, you know, this is something that is so outside the norm. It's shocking. It's still shocking.
Yeah, I mean, that clearly stinks to high heaven. I agree with that. And Sarah, you say you were live tweeting during this trial. You were all over it. When did you feel something was amiss here?
From the very beginning, Dr. Phil, I saw very early on that justice looked really different in this case. There was about 3 weeks of inadmissible, like Jim said, character assassination evidence that came in, which was about Alec being a dirty thief and a liar. And so, of course, by the time he took the stand, he was done. I mean, the jury was not going to believe a word out of his mouth, and he was already convicted in their minds. So I think of all the trials that I have broken down in media, this was really one that stood out because of all of the sidebar stories and twists and turns and a system that was really different. I've tried cases all over the country, but it was very different what I was seeing in this trial.
Well, there's no question that he's a thief and a liar, right?
Yeah.
Admittedly so.
Yeah.
But Dr. Phil,
that's not what he's on trial for. But...
Right, and the state convinced the trial judge over our objection that he killed his wife and son to distract from a financial investigation. I mean, he put himself right in the center of a murder investigation to distract from a financial investigation. Now, that is illogical in our view.
Well, from the psychological standpoint of a trial, sometimes a client will do a modified mea culpa on something that's not actionable in that case to buy credibility with the jury.
I agree that that happens. It certainly didn't happen in this case. I mean, Alec had admitted his financial crimes well before he was ever charged with a murder case.
He admitted that he hired somebody to shoot him in the head.
Correct.
I mean, this is an odd duck. I mean...
Nobody believed he was an opiate addict, and he was one of the worst kinds I've seen, you know, and people don't understand that addiction is not just about transacting pills and buying pills. It's a whole lifestyle. So shooting himself in the head is also, you know.
Yeah. All right, coming up, we're going to take a look at Becky Hill's testimony. Did she tell another court clerk that a guilty verdict would help her book? We'll talk about that after the break. When somebody involved in a case that's plotting to write a book during a court case and interacts with anybody that's involved in a trier of fact role, crosses a line and nothing is done, does that send a message that this is a entertainment platform instead of a justice platform?
I find that the clerk of court is not completely credible as a witness. She stated to the clerk of court, Rhonda McElveen, and others, her desire for a guilty verdict because it would sell books. She made comments about Murdaugh's demeanor as he testified, and she made some of those comments before he testified to at least one and maybe more jurors. Did Clerk of Court Hill's comments have any impact on the verdict of the jury? I find that the answer to this question is no.
Well, that court clerk, Becky Hill, was called to the stand to testify, so let's take a look at what she had to do to explain herself.
When did you first decide you were going to write a book?
I think a thought was there, a very fleeting thought, before the trial.
Let me give you an example. You indicate riding back from Moselle that you and 3 other people were in a car, and you all decided adamantly, I think was the word you used, that he was guilty, that he had killed his wife and son. Is that what you put in the book?
I can't remember if I put that in the book, but if you say I did, then I will agree with you.
Did that happen?
We did have a conversation about what each of us thought.
And all 4 agreed that he was guilty, correct?
And none of us were jurors.
Becky Hill's infamous book, not new to this hearing. A fellow South Carolina clerk of court who assisted Hill in the Murdaugh case also took the stand. She says Hill often talked about the book and how the trial's verdict could determine its success.
The evidence was coming forth that it looked like he might be guilty, and she made a comment that guilty verdict would be better for the sale of books.
Jim, should there be charges against Becky Hill?
What Justice Toll found absolutely makes a case of violation of our obstruction of justice statute in South Carolina. Obstruction of justice includes attempted jury tampering. And so, yes, charges should be brought. Will they be brought? I don't know. What I do know is there is no larger conflict of interest, in our opinion, than the Attorney General and his prosecutors evaluating whether to charge Becky Hill, because they are so invested in the verdict against Alec Murdaugh. It needs to be independently reviewed. We'd asked for that early on, and we continue to ask for that.
We all know that you're asking the court to indict themselves for not controlling the process along the way, and it's real hard to get a court to criticize their own process. That's probably not going to happen. And Sarah, let me ask you this. When certainly a court clerk that's plotting to write a book during a court case and interacts with anybody that's involved in a trier of fact role crosses a line and nothing is done, does that send a message that this is a entertainment platform instead of a justice platform? I mean, what kind of message does this send?
Yeah, a clerk is like the right hand to a judge. And so it's even worse. But I think the irony here to me is that even though this case started off as, oh, let's bring down Murdaugh, this corrupt lawyer in low country, South Carolina, as we're starting to see, there's a lot of other corruption, right, around. I mean, you've got Becky Hill, you've got her son who was wiretapping phone calls after his mother was under investigation. There's just so many sidebar stories to this case that corruption, it's ironic. It's becoming more about other layers of, institutions and people.
One of the things I've learned in working with juries, which I did for years and years, is they believe that the judge and the clerk are kind of a unit. Mm-hmm. And they do kind of drape the judge's robes around the clerk and the bailiff, and they kind of look at them as a unit. So there's an intimacy there, a familiarity there that lends credibility to that person. And Becky Hill testified that she gave the jurors pep talks and said, really pay attention, sit up, pay attention today when Alec Murdaugh is testifying and watch what he does, not just what he says. And she actually admitted to some of those things. And she testified after the verdict that she spoke to jurors about media interviews and that type thing. So it doesn't pass the smell test, that's for sure. And the question is, was there impropriety? And is that the standard? Or is the standard that you need to avoid even the appearance of impropriety in order to know that someone has been given a fair trial? And coming up, there was a ton of evidence against Murdaugh. How does Jim plan to prove his innocence or that he's not guilty if he is granted a new trial? We'll be right back.
So after our book came out, I felt like I got caught in the Becky blender. When I found out, I was shocked, I was caught off guard, and the first thing I did was call her.
Was this an ego play or a money play for her?
Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
If yes, what did Ms. Hill say?
To watch his actions.
To watch his actions? Was your verdict influenced in any way by the communications of the clerk of court in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And how was it influenced?
To me, it felt like she made it seem like he was already guilty.
Well, that was Juror Z, the one juror who says she was influenced by the court clerk. Now, I spent a lot of years analyzing jurors and how they think and how they are influenced at a company that I founded called Courtroom Sciences. And trials are supposed to begin with a jury that is a totally blank canvas as to the parties and the fact pattern. Nobody comes into a trial without some preconceived notions. The idea is that they don't have preconceived notions about those parties and that fact pattern. Now, Alec Murdaugh has 8 million hits on Google. Is finding an unbiased jury even possible at this point? How are you ever going to impanel a jury?
If that day comes, which we believe it will be years down the road. And so hopefully there'll be another big case that has wiped this one off the national consciousness by then. But I can tell you for sure we will not go back to Colleton County. We would ask for a change of venue to some other place in the state of South Carolina and hopefully, get a different makeup of a jury. And hopefully we'll have a clerk who doesn't, what we believe, tamper with a jury during the process. It all boils down to getting an unbiased and fair jury. As you know, in high-profile cases, it's impossible to get a jury who's never heard about the case. But what you have to do is get a jury who can set that aside and decide the case in the courtroom.
And people think sometimes that you select a jury and you don't. You deselect a jury, and you know, sometimes it's down to you got one strike left, and you look who's next, and you think, I don't like him, but I damn sure don't like her. So I'm going to take him.
Meeny, miny, mo.
I'm going to take him because the next one is horrible. I've seen lawyers many times, Judge, I want to strike this person for cause. I don't want to use one of my strikes. I want to strike this person for cause because they know the lawyer on the other side. And that's not really the test, is it? The test is, can you set that aside and follow the law as instructed? This juror said, I was influenced. And I did not set it aside.
And that's why it's so important that everything the jury hears is in the open courtroom in front of the defense counsel, the defendant in front of the judge. But when you have communication back in the jury room by a court official about the merits of the case, I mean, we are helpless to deal with that during the course of a trial because we don't even know about it.
And y'all's point is, you got a steep enough hill to climb as it is. You shouldn't have to deal with somebody coming in, doing an end run after hours, behind closed doors, talking secretly to the jurors.
Exactly.
There's no question that there's a violation when a clerk goes and starts telling people, watch what he does, watch this, watch that, watch the other. If he got a new trial and he was found not guilty, he may never take another free breath in his life, given what he has admitted to and the deals he's struck on financial crimes, right?
That's correct. The plea that he did in state court, and he's going to be sentenced in federal court here in the next few months, I suspect. I mean, he's going to get north of probably 22 to 25 years. He's 55 years old, so
yeah. So
I mean, that's a lot.
He's
could
not
be a
likely
lifetime.
Yeah, he's not likely to be out walking around. Coming up next, we're going to talk to the man who co-authored Clerk Becky Hill's book. What did she tell him happened when she went with jurors to the murder scene? You're going to find this pretty interesting. Alex Murdaugh's defense team insists a court clerk did tamper with the jury in an effort to boost the sales of a book she wrote about the case. Well, the co-author of that book is here. Neil Gordon says Becky Hill loved being a part of the action.
I met Becky Hill 3 weeks to the day after Alex Murdaugh was convicted of double murder. We had an initial phone call, hit it off instantly, and decided we were going to write a book together. She had known the Murdaugh family for about 20 years. I think Becky Hill's two worlds collided. As clerk of court, she was supposed to be Switzerland, but as a real person who knew Alex Murdaugh, she felt he was guilty. The clerk of court is supposed to be neutral. Becky loved the limelight. She loved getting photographed, and she loved being interviewed as well. I'm not sure she used the best judgment in conducting interviews and setting up book signings from her courthouse office. So after our book came out, I felt like I got caught in the Becky blender. She got jury tampering allegations, ethics violations, and then her son got involved in alleged wiretapping. And the biggest thing involving me is I discovered that she plagiarized our preface. When I found out, I was shocked, I was caught off guard, and the first thing I did was call her. She told me she felt she was under deadline pressure and she needed some more content to help us fill out the book. I just never would have imagined that Becky would have plagiarized a chapter. She's an elected official. I don't think Becky's a malicious person at all. I wonder if she had to do it all over again, she would have made different decisions. I also think she may have gotten a bit overwhelmed working on the trial of the century. It was really a perfect storm.
Well, Neil says his wife met Becky outside the courthouse during the trial. So you didn't know her. You got introduced to her.
That's correct.
And she was on the prowl. She was looking for a way to get a book and get it out there, and she liked the limelight.
She liked the limelight. I mean, I've been in the TV news and world, and you know, fame is interesting, and you can get intoxicated by fame, no question.
Did she think the book would do better if there was a guilty verdict than if there wasn't?
We never discussed that, and I don't think it mattered one way or the other. We were just simply following her journey, preparing for the trial of the century, operating it, dealing with all the factions, and then dealing with a little bit of how she's known the Murdaugh family all of her life. So it never entered our minds as to whether it was guilty, innocent, or mistrial whatsoever.
Were you aware that Becky Hill had asked the ethics committee for their opinion about the book?
Yeah, we had conversations about it, Sarah.
And that she told the ethics committee that she was just going to write a book about the general trial process, not about the Murdaugh trial, right?
That's correct.
But it was really about the Murdaugh trial.
It was her experience.
So you weren't concerned about the ethical?
Well, I was concerned to the point that we actually suspended writing the book for about a week or two while the Ethics Commission sort of came back with what they thought.
Was this an ego play or a money play for her, or both, or neither?
I don't know that it was a money play because we self-published it. So together we were $30,000 in the hole as we started. So I don't know that it was that way.
Was she talking about buying a lake house?
Yes, that was certainly a stretch goal.
Well, why did she write the book?
Well, she just thought this was a moment in time that may never be replicated for decades and such. And
well, so she was a first draft historian? Is that what you're saying?
She kind of looked at it as chronicling a little bit about how to prepare for it and then how to deal with it and the fact that her connection with Alex Murdaugh. So yeah, she wanted to be able to have a book.
Neil, she was taking selfies in front of the courtaucourthouse with trial watchers.
She did. She enjoyed that. You know, here's the thing about her. You know the Andy Griffith Show. She's really Aunt B. You know, it's kind of welcome and hospitable. And yes, she took selfies and she handed out her cards if anyone had questions.
Do you think Aunt B would plagiarize portions of a book to be the first one out?
You should be a lawyer.
Yeah.
I want to be a talk show host.
I think you'd be pretty good at that, too. No, seriously, I mean, I know you're trying to be kind here, and I'm not trying to throw her under the bus, although she might fit nicely. But no, seriously, she's not here to defend herself. I watched her defend herself, and I'll just leave that for people to make their own mind up about. But it seems to me that she's been through a lot of trials, and this was the biggest trial in terms of media exposure and attention and experience. And this would be a good time to elucidate the process for the uninformed.
So, Dr. Phil, people know that she's had about 20 years of experience in the courtroom. What they don't really understand is she only had 20 weeks of experience as the clerk of court.
Neil says that Hill had eye chatter with the jury at the crime scene. We'll talk about that when we come back. How long were you involved in this case, Jim, from start to finish?
So, Dr. Phil, I initially represented Paul, his son, the result of a boating accident in February of 2019. The murders happened in June of 2021, and I was there 2 days after the murders, meeting with Alec and SLED, and so, you know, I was, from the day of the murders, been involved in the case.
There were people losing their lives around this family. The housekeeper, then Ms. Beach, and others. There were problems around this family that I bet you there aren't very many people in this studio audience here that had that many people in their radius that died, you know, out of pattern. Do you think that colored people's perception of this family?
For sure. It was a false narrative. I mean, the February 2019 boating accident where the death of a beautiful young woman, it was 6 kids out on a boat, all drinking, and it was a boating accident. The death of the housekeeper was, you know, questionable whether it's natural causes, that she had an aneurysm, fell down the stairs, hit her head, and was in the hospital, and then died. And then, you know, Alec has admitted to coming up with a false insurance claim to get her children money, but then he stole the money, he's admitted. So, I mean that's bad. And then this whole roadside Stephen Smith thing is as, I get as angry about that as anything, because that is just made up from whole cloth that there's a Murdaugh connection. There is no Murdaugh connection. But the storylines that you see on these documentaries, they're always linking them together.
And podcasts.
And, you know, they want this Murdaugh family to sound like the Kennedy family in Chappaquiddick, and it's just not there.
But people do start connecting dots, whether they should be connected or not.
Sure.
And do you think she made up her mind that he was guilty early on?
It's strange. I think she was doing her job, you know, working 16 hours a day, but then also just kind of concurrently following this as a trial watcher. And she came to the conclusion that she felt that he was guilty, you know, based upon the evidence. When that occurred, I'm not sure. I know she absolutely made up her mind the day before when everyone walked the crime scene.
Well, I think it would make a better book if he was guilty, so there's also that.
I don't think so.
What happened at the crime scene? She had made her mind up by the time she left that crime scene, right?
Yeah, she walked with all the jurors, the judge, I believe all the attorneys that were involved. They kind of measured where the murder happened to where the house was when he was, you know, supposedly there and leaving. And she told me that she locked eyes with different jury members. And she said it was just a women's intuition, Dr. Phil, that she felt they knew and I knew he was guilty, and that's what we put in the book.
And at what point did you bail? What point did you say, I don't want anything more to do with this?
December 23rd, which was a Friday morning, I was having coffee with my beautiful wife, and I got to page 1644 of this 2,100-page email dump, and I saw the back and forth going on between the BBC reporter and Becky, and I said, oh my God, because I recognized the preface as being almost identical. And so immediately I called Becky and I understood what happened. We made the decision to cease publication of the book. I reached out to the writer to apologize and see if there was anything that we could do.
She did first lie about plagiarizing, right? She said, oh, I don't remember, maybe they gave me permission, maybe they didn't.
Yeah, I need to check my email or whatever. I said, Becky, that's plagiarism. I said, this is serious. This is really serious.
All right. Coming up, true crime has gone Hollywood. We know that. My next guest knows better than anyone what it's like to get famous from a high-profile criminal case, because he's the most infamous house guest of all time and the star witness of the O.J. Simpson trial. Kato Kaelin joins me next.
Did the officers ever indicate to you any concern about a suicide or a murder occurring on the premises at Rockingham?
No.
This afternoon, O.J. Simpson's defense team recalled Brian Cato Kaelin to the witness stand. Kaelin occupies guest quarters on Simpson's Brentwood property and was questioned by police the morning after the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman.
Did the officers ever ask you about your clothing?
Yes.
What did they ask you?
He said, what did you wear yesterday? So I pointed out what I wore yesterday.
Right.
And he looked at it.
Did he pick up the clothing and examine it?
He picked up a pair of my shoes and examined it.
All right. Did he look at the bottom of your shoes?
Yes.
Millions watched the Murdaugh murder trial, and not since O.J. Simpson have we been so captivated by a criminal trial. Around 150 million people were watching when the O.J. verdict came down. Kato Kaelin was the prosecution's star witness, and that turned him into an actual star. The polls showed 75% of Americans knew who Kato was, and only 25 knew who Al Gore was. And he was vice president of the United States at the time. Kato, we've known each other a long time, right?
Yeah, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you again. And people are wondering, well, what's he got to do with this case? And fortunately, nothing. But you understand how this clerk can get caught up in the whirlwind of all of this. And do you think she did get caught up in the whirlwind of all this?
Yeah, well, I can answer this by saying I was this wannabe actor from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I came out, and the next thing you know, overnight, the media flexed their muscles, and I became a celebrity, a pariah, a traitor, a dummy, a freeloader, America's favorite house guest. All these things were done by the media. And so you get caught up in there. But my goal was entertainment. And for Becky Hill, I think hers was more fame for, I think probably for money and not to get into show business. So it's a different sort of fame for her. But yes, fame, and by the way, it is fleeting. Fame is fleeting. I think she'll find that out because the media already looks for the next target.
You say that the media portrays you in a certain light. It's really hard to unring that bell.
Yeah, well, completely. You see, a lot of people didn't know that. I already had my Screen Actors Guild card for years, but because of the trial, if I showed up at an event, they thought, he's capitalizing on something that's horrible. First of all, I know why I'm famous, for the most horrible situation. 2 young, beautiful people lost their lives. The week before the murders actually happened, and I think the audience would be blown away, I screen tested, and my buddy gave me a script for a film. And I read for the casting, and they filmed me. And that film was, in 1994, was called Dumb and Dumber. Because of the hair. And I'm not kidding, that's a true story.
Yeah, well, that didn't work out.
Well, I thought you were going to say at least you're still dumb. Hey!
Yeah, but the whole thing is that the power of the media, when they start a narrative, and you know, that's what you were saying about all these deaths swirling around, and they start a narrative about that, it's really hard to push back against that because it's a machine. And the machine, you know, swept you up in that. And, you know, I think Becky Hill had larceny in her heart. It seems to me, it's just my opinion. She's not here to defend herself, so I'm just telling you what I think. She was writing this book for a purpose. I don't think it was to pull back the curtain on the legal process. I think she had an agenda and a purpose, and the siren of celebrity swept her up. And when you go from being invisible to all of a sudden you have some vehicle to be noticed, interviewed, comments, et cetera, it can be intoxicating.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, it's 100% intoxicating. Here's the problem. They build you up because they want you to go down, and then they cover you going down. And if you don't have a good back, if you don't know who you are, you will be destroyed. And I think in the case of with Becky Hill, the only thing that is in anybody's favor is time that'll pass on. That's the only recourse.
There's also benefits of the impact of media on high-profile trials. I mean, when you look at the Serial podcast and how Adnan Syed got justice, or the Gabby Petito and how her body was found, it's all because of the power of mainstream media and social media. So, I mean, there are those benefits as well, but for the most part, and why we have our podcast is because it's become an assumption of guilt as opposed to a presumption of innocence.
Yeah, and you got to push back in some way. People would never forgive me if I didn't ask you what you were doing these days.
Well, I got a few things going on, but one of them, since you brought up podcast, we have a podcast, Tom Zenner and I, it's called 1 Degree of Scandalous. You want to do it? Fine, I'll get you on.
That's what I need, is more time on camera. Yeah. All right, coming up, Jim says his fight isn't over. I want to ask him about next steps. We'll be right back. Well, we're back talking about our nation's obsession with true crime and how it affects our justice system. You're in this in real life. It's not entertainment for you, Jim. You're dealing with someone that you're still in the fight. What are the next steps? I assume you take this to the appellate court, and hope to get a different verdict.
That's correct. I'm very optimistic that our Supreme Court will vacate this conviction.
If you got a new trial, is there any major strategic change that you would make in the way you tried this case?
We'd obviously move for change of venue, and it depends on if the financial evidence is, if that stays out, you know, would we put Alec on the stand again? I don't know. And so those were two big strategic decisions that we did make. Hopefully over the passage of time, there will be more information coming forth. I believe there will be. In my heart of hearts, I believe strongly that Alec did not kill his wife and son. I can tell you, over the holidays, I was in the back of a cab in New York, and the guy recognized me, Cato, and he says, your client did not kill his son. Nobody does that. And, you know, I can't get away from that. And I can't sleep at night thinking about that. And so this is it's not entertainment for me. This is a consumption. And you know, his family does not believe he did it, and those who know him best do not believe he did it.
Yeah, I, of course, won't ask you how much, but have you been paid?
We were paid to do the trial. He was able to liquidate his retirement account. We got $600,000 of that. We thought we were in pretty good shape. Dr. Phil, we spent $550,000 in out-of-pocket costs trying that case. So we're not in it for the money anymore, but it's what we do as criminal defense lawyers. Once you take a case, you don't walk away from your claim.
You stay with it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank all of my guests. Be sure and check out Sarah and Jim's podcast called The Presumption. And we'll be following along with the rest of America as Jim continues to fight to get Alec Murdaugh a new trial. You can also check out Cato's podcast, 1 Degree of Scandalous. You know where to find it. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.